Mr. Prичард, you're not first time in Macedonia, but probably first time in this period of big political crisis in the country. How do you comment the current situation in Macedonia?
Well, I'm pleased that Parliament is now sitting again, and I think it's important to move to a position where there is agreement for a new coalition government as quickly as possible. That's good for the people of Macedonia, but also good for the investment climate here. I mean, if you read the recent World Bank report, Macedonia is 6th in Europe, 12th in the world, ranked for the best place to do business. But that can only happen when business has confidence that there is political stability. So I'm glad that in the last few days we've seen a move back to a normality where there can be stability, political stability, and therefore the right environment to create more jobs and prosperity for the people of Macedonia.
You had some meetings with some of the political leaders in the country. Do you see any kind of solution in the near future?
Well, clearly the wiretapping allegations are serious and they need to be investigated. That's an internal matter, but I think there's a general principle in law universally, and that is that these allegations would need to be investigated wherever they are. But there is a presumption in law internationally that whoever is accused is innocent until proven guilty. And I think that any country's judicial system needs to avoid an environment or accidentally creating an environment where people are seen to be guilty without any court case. And I think the judicial process needs to take place, but it needs to be open, it needs to be transparent, it needs to be fair, and due process needs to take place. But most of all, as in any judicial system in any country, it needs to be evidence-led.
Mr. Prичард, this big political crisis came in the same moment with the biggest migrant crisis in Europe, if I can say. In this period, Macedonia has the keys of the gates of the European Union and stability in Europe in this migrant crisis. Can this crisis reflect one of each other if we expect a new wave of migrants this summer?
Well, first of all, I think it shows the importance of the Geneva talks working and for there to be a peaceful solution quickly in Syria and for there to be a new Syrian inclusive government so that people want to remain in their own country. I think when it comes to the North African migration crisis, we need to ensure that fragile states don't become failed states in order that people are fleeing persecution or fleeing conflict areas or fleeing poverty. So those are important strategic goals in the medium to long term, and hopefully in Syria in the short term. And we can all play a part in the international community in that. In relation to Europe specifically and borders, I think the EU-Turkey deal has already had an effect, and it's important that Turkey continue to support the European Union in making sure that people aren't getting onto boats off the Turkish coast, and most of them arriving in Greece. That said, I think that Greece needs to be doing more, and I will be in Greece next week with the Migration Committee on the Isle of Lesbos and in Athens having discussions, and I'll be encouraging them to do more. But I do recognise the pressures on the Greek government. But thirdly, and in direct answer to your question, I'd like to thank the government of Macedonia, the people of Macedonia, for doing, and the army and the police of Macedonia for doing such a great job. I was down on the Macedonian-Greek border yesterday and saw firsthand the excellent job that the army and the police are doing and the leadership shown by the government here. And whilst Macedonia may not yet be a member of the European Union, it has effectively become the European Union's border, and it's in the EU's interest, and it is in all of our interest to make sure that the migration crisis is solved. But what I've seen with my own eyes is an excellent effort by Macedonia, and even the conditions in the camps, those that have managed to cross into Macedonia, the conditions are very, very good indeed, with medical care and education provided with the Macedonian government, Red Cross and the UNHCR. But of course we want to see an end to this crisis, and I think the end is in sight, but we need to stay focused, and we need to stay united, and internally within this country getting back to governing for all the people of Macedonia and helping neighbours with the migration crisis is now more likely to happen.
Is it possible in this situation really for Macedonia to expect an invitation for NATO in the next summit, or to start the negotiation with the European Union this year?
Well, the armed forces of Macedonia are very, very professional, and on a personal note, thank you for what the Macedonian army have done in Afghanistan, and there is a small contingent still in Kabul, I understand. They're professional, they're doing a great job. So I think the contribution of the Macedonian military to NATO would be a welcome one. That said, there is a process that needs to take place, and I know that in principle NATO would be happy to see Macedonia as a member, but there are still reforms to take place, and we'll have to wait and see. I think the forthcoming NATO summit in Warsaw will be important. There are things to discuss in the Baltics and other important key issues, but the Balkans should not be forgotten about. I don't believe it will, and there will obviously be some discussion about possible new members, and I hope one of those will be Macedonia.
What is your message, my last question, your message to your colleagues here in Macedonia?
Well, I think across the parties, politicians should put people first. They should put their country first. And their careers last. As I said in the beginning, Macedonia needs to work very quickly towards putting in a new government, a coalition government that works in the interests of the nation as a whole, getting back and focusing on getting people into jobs, growing the prosperity of the country, and move on from this difficult period, a period in which a lot of companies, I understand, international companies that want to invest in Macedonia have just held off on those decisions, waiting to see what happens. So now that there is stability, there needs to be continuity, and there needs to be an environment in which people and businesses feel it's safe to invest.
Mr. Prичард, thank you for this interview.
Thank you.